Us Italians, we have a million ways to make pasta with beans. Up in the north, they call it pasta e fagioli. Down south, pasta fazool. It's fantastic. It's a meal in which in a single pasta bowl you have everything that you would want. Your beans, your meat, sausage in this case, and of course pasta. It's delicious, especially on a cold winter night. Let me show you how to make it. In the pot, what we have is some olive oil that's getting nice and warm. While the olive oil is getting nice and warm, what I like to do is add a pinch of red pepper flakes. And as you can see, it's a little bit more than a pinch. Why? Because this is for me. If I was to cook for my wife, I could never do this. You heard that before. The next thing that I want to do is to add what I refer to as the essence of Sicily, garlic. This is not chopped, it's thickly cut alla paesana, as it say. Paesana means country style, with disregard to the size, just boom, put in there. Together, while this is happening, what we want to do, we also want to create the base for what ultimately will be the soup. And you're accustomed to this already, you see me do this many times. First we go with a little bit of carrots. Then we put a little bit of celery. And here we are with the third part of the triumvirate, the onions. Italians, we call this soffritto. French call it mirepoix. What I'm doing right now, I'm going to reduce the heat down to medium. I don't want this thing to burn. I want it to cook over a long period of time and bring out all the flavors. But how do we help these flavors come out? Two things. First, the addition of fresh herbs. You can use thyme, rosemary. In this case, it's a small mixture of the two. In this here, I have fresh rosemary and thyme that I mixed together. I love it because they marry wonderfully well, both with the sausage as well with the beans. The beans in itself also, you can use any kind of beans that you want. In this case, I'm going to use cannellini. It's got a cute name, they're white and they're beautiful. Now, let me continue with a couple of more additions. These are not typical of pasta fagioli, but I like it because they bring color. So I'm going to go with yellow pepper and some green pepper. You want to cook this for about 3 minutes on medium heat until they start to loosen in sense of losing a little bit of the stiffness that they had. You want them to soften. You want it to become translucent. Few moments have gone by, and now is the time for us to add the sausage. This is Italian sausage. The kind of sausage that I chose is spicy sausage. You don't have to go that route, you can do anything that you want, but I find the spicy sausage gives me the greatest satisfaction for this dish. This particular sausage many times before and always has a fantastic balance. It has a little bit of spice, but not so much that's over the top. Now watch what I'm doing with my hand. With my hand, I'm using this instrument to break the sausage in small pieces. It's almost as if you're making a meat sauce. You want this sausage to become small, tiny bits of pieces of which you'll take a tiny bite with every bite of the pasta fagioli that you will get. As you can see, we have exactly the consistency that I wanted. This is already starting to look as the base for a meat sauce. It is at this point that I want to bring additional flavor. In this case, I would like to add some white wine. But you can pretty much use anything you want. You can do Marsala, you can do Madeira, you can do port, you can do even red wine if you want, or even brandy will taste great. But a little bit of the wine needs to be in there to stay true to its Italian tradition. So here we go with the wine. And as we do that, we keep stirring to incorporate all the ingredients together. And you want to cook this until at least half of the volume of the wine will have evaporated. The next thing that I like to do is tomato sauce. This will give a wonderful balance to all the elements that we already added, and together with the tomato sauce, we're going to go with a little bit of stock. You can use beef stock, chicken stock. I'm gonna go with chicken stock this time. Now, I want you to increase the heat a little bit and bring it to a boil. Once a soup reaches a gentle boil, I like to reduce the heat from high to medium high. And in the process of this, I like to make the two key additions to this dish to give the dish its name. First, we're gonna go with the beans. One thing that I do different than most of the recipes that you've seen before, I do not like to put nor the water in which the beans are cooked, if you make this from scratch, or the water in which the beans are packed, if you are taking this from a can. By the way, canned beans work extremely well in this and also cuts on the amount of time that you need. Cooking beans is not a difficult thing, but it requires quite a few hours. So I often refer to good brands of canned beans that I like, that I trust. As I mentioned to you before, I'm using white beans just for a preference of the whole combination of colors in here, but any kind of bean, including black beans if you want to, they will have a slightly different flavor from what this is, but it's the consistency on how the beans react together with the pasta and with the sausage. Talking about the pasta, here comes the surprise. Watch this. You've seen this pasta before, I'm sure, many times. We call this cut ditalini, which means little fingers. And what this pasta has is the ability to slightly expand within the cooking of this and marry extremely well together with the beans and the rest of the ingredient. Now, what I want to do is for the next 10-15 minutes on a medium-high heat, we want to let this reduce somewhat, and we want for the pasta to cook well within the context of this. As you can see, the dish is sticking through wonderfully well. The unevenness in the cutting of the veggies in this particular case works to our advantage. It does two things. First, he reintroduces the country style and the country character of this dish. Second, they make it fun to bite into. My wife once said something about she likes to see the small pieces of carrots in a soup because she looks forward to bite straight into them. And I have to say that visually that is perfect. Now, we're ready to plate it. There are the many things that are so magical, like a plate of pasta fagioli that takes you back to your youth. But this is something more than magic. This is a rendition of dreams that come together through a series of actions where what you used to be the past of my life comes alive again. And the most beautiful thing about this is that I get to share it with you and to know that your families will enjoy this recipe for many centuries to come. It gives me a sense, an idea, a dream of thinking a little bit about my Donna Adele, a little bit of my Grandma Maria, my Mamma Massimiliana, my father Vincenzo, my brother Mario will live forever with you. And this is how you make pasta fagioli. There's a skillfulness in understanding the making of a sauce, being a cream-based sauce, being a tomato-based sauce, or how you connect it with the meat, how you get it together with the ingredients, how you bring it slowly into this one place in the middle where the pasta and the sauce are no longer two different things, but they become one. Now, achieving this miracle of making a pasta dish as a one essence is, for me, the greatest achievement in life. Most of you know about the Italian meat sauce that we use for our spaghetti, for our pasta, but there's another version of the meat sauce called the white meat sauce, and today I would like to share that with you. The flavoring is completely different. There's a strong pickup that comes with the rosemary that cooks into it, but it's elegant, it's flavorful, and it's different. And it will take you nothing to make it at home. Let me show you how to make it. In the pan, what we have is olive oil. It's getting nice and hot. To the olive oil, we're going to add a little bit of garlic. I like to add it thick for the simple reason that this is going to reduce over a certain period of time. And if you were to add it already chopped, especially at this point, the garlic would actually start to burn. The next thing that I do, just for a little bit of flavor together with the garlic, we add some red pepper flakes. Now, the oil has not come to hot temperature yet, and this is an advantage because it allows you, doing this technique by adding it when it's just starting to get warm, you get to see how the oil is and how it gets warmer and how the ingredients react. You say, Nick, why? Well, let me explain to you why. This gives you control. This gives you the ability of not relying on some super hot oil coming back at you and splashing back and burning your ingredient. This, on the other hand, allows you to see what the temperature is and how to take to the temperature that you want. Now that everything is starting to sizzle like that, we add our ingredients. The base, as always, starts with carrots, onions, and a little bit of celery. We stir this about just for a couple of moments until they start to soften. To make this a complete sauce, we need to add other elements to it that bring it up. So we go with the basil, parsley, sage. All of these elements are extremely important because as they cook into the base of our sauce, are exponentially growing all these layers of flavors, and the flavor that will be imparted onto the meat through this base is significant. At this point, always go with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. This is something that you never see me use before in this form. Usually what I like to do is to take small pieces of bacon and add it to the base, because the bacon really enhances the sauce and the flavoring of everything. In this case, instead, I have done something completely different. I've taken 2 slices of bacon, I put it into a food processor, and basically I've shredded them almost to a cream-like state. This is what it looks like. In this wonderful combination of flavors, we add one last important part, bay leaf. You will not believe that a small bay leaf like this can have so much flavor, but bringing it in, it starts to toast up and it blooms the flavor into the sauce. You could go with beef, but I prefer to use veal instead. Once you add the veal to it, I want you to stir and break it up. What we want to achieve is try to break in as many smaller pieces as we possibly can. These pieces, the ground meat that we're trying to break down in small little grain, is the essentiality in terms of protein for this dish. What I love in this process is that both the veggies and the meat have combined into an amalgamated form. And this truly is what I love, because it's no longer the meat, the veggies, the spices, everything is one. It's a big hug. It's like a family. Here's our addition of wine, white wine. And I want for this wine to completely evaporate. The next addition we're gonna make is chicken stock. I have cooked at this point on medium-high heat. It gets at this point that I want to wait to see a soft rolling boil. Guarda che bellezza. For those of you who don't speak Italian, mamma mia, guarda che bellezza simply means, holy moly, mamma, look how beautiful this is. At this point, we reduce the heat to low, to a simmer. We want for this sauce to come to the perfect reduction. It will take anywhere between 15 to 25 minutes, depending on how much you want to reduce it. So let's wait for this to get to the right texture, and then we'll finish it up. Now, the sauce has reduced perfectly, exactly to the spot where I like to have it. Let's add the pasta in here. For this dish, we have chosen a cut called ziti. What is ziti exactly? Ziti is many different things, but specifically the way to call a pasta ziti is to really give it this look. This pasta is basically like penne, but without the ridges, like small little tubular pieces. Oh, one thing that's also important, I got so excited I forgot to tell you about it. The bay leaf, it served this purpose. Now it's time for this bay leaf to go. We'll put it back in there, and we'll continue with this. What makes this pasta so interesting? 2 things. At this very moment, the pasta is cooking and picking up the extra additional liquid that's in the sauce. It's penetrating the pasta. Many times they're giving you this. Guarda che bellezza. All right, this is an exciting moment, but we still have 2 important additions. But before we do these additions, we need to do something important. Turn off the heat completely. There's enough heat already retained by the pasta, and there is enough heat already retained by the pan in which the pasta is cooking. So here we go with some softened butter. The batter glazes, coats everything. Already the pasta would be perfect and ready to be served this way. So you could take it to the table and serve it this way. But not me. Why? I'll tell you why. I like to have a bit of cheesy flavor in there. So a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano, and mamma mia. The pasta is ready. Now, let's plate it. When I look at this pasta, I see my youth. I see many of the things that my mom used to make. I see some of the thoughts and the ideas that I've evolved with, and my ability to incorporate inside my cooking these novel ideas that I learned by looking at others. But this pasta with white meat sauce is a masterpiece, a trip down memory lane, but it makes you smile. Yes, pasta is happiness. And this is how you make pasta with white meat sauce. My joy is not to be the one and only one that does it. My joy is to teach people how to make it because I want them to see what I see. I want them to feel what I feel. Joy, in general, is contagious. And there's nothing more joyful than a plate of pasta. To cook my favorite dishes today, come with me to my... Ready? Several of the video... that's too long. Let me start over again. Big smile at the camera. Let me show you how to make. Today. I know, it's like my brain has decided to go on the freeway without paying the toll.
Okay, just give me a welcome to the kitchen.
Okay.
Big smile.
Are you in need of a smile? Today's your lucky day. Follow me into my kitchen. Today, we're going to make spicy corn salad. So wonderful, so tasty, and so easy to make. Poached chicken breast and mole sauce with chocolate. And we end with gazpacho. It's not Italian, but it's fantastic. And I'm going to share with you the story on how it is that I fell in love with Latino food, especially Mexican food. Come for the recipes. Stay for the story. I think of America, the United States of America, as a huge minestrone soup. There's everything in here. I tried foods that I never thought I would try. I fell in love with flavors which I didn't even know existed. But one of the greatest attractions that I think I have is South American food in general. Mexican, Guatemalan, Brazilian, Argentinian. There's something about Latino food that, I don't know how to explain this. It reminds me a lot of Sicilian food. There's passion, there's fire, there's a purpose, a direction, there's a certain simplicity. Yet, putting these dishes together requires an understanding of the basic dish, of what it is, how to make it. Techniques are simple. But you cannot so much improvise until you truly understand the soul of a dish, and somebody's got to explain it to you. Hola, yo soy el chef Nick Stellino. I know, I sound good in Spanish. But you should know that some of the greatest lessons that I've learned, I learned them in Spanish. I learned from all my Latino friends that work with me at the restaurants that basically symbolize the rise of my career. I would like to start today's episode with a spectacular recipe inspired by these lessons that I got. Spicy corn salad. Let me show you how to make it. This is a Latino dish. More often than not, I think it would be Mexican inspired, but has a lot of influences from my passion for American barbecue, specifically smoking meats. And one of the things that I decided to do in the salad is to make it simple, with ingredients that you'll find in your local supermarket, and I wanted to have it explosive with flavors. The dressing in itself is the most important part. We start with a little bit of vinegar. And this vinegar, I wanted to find a counterbalance to. In this particular case, I'm going to be using brown sugar. Why brown sugar? Brown sugar has molasses together with the vinegar. The molasses is going to break down, and it's going to involve everything else into the salad. But the dressing is not over yet. Jalapeno, cut very, very thin. Next to the jalapeno, a little bit of parsley, but you can also use mint if you have it available. It really enhances and brings the dish to a whole different flavor. And then here we go with a little bit of tomato sauce. At this point, we mix the ingredients together just in a general way, and then there is the most important addition, which is Nick's Magic Rub. And this is where I say to everybody, America is beautiful. Why? This magic rub is a byproduct of many things. It comes from my passion for barbecue, where I find these spices to be more often than not the ones that we use all the time when we make ribs, when we make brisket. So in this particular case, this mixture is in equal parts salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, and brown sugar. The opposing forces seem to be totally opposite, but in this particular case, they unite. They bring together a flavor which is unique. Now that we have all these things, the smallest thing that we need to do is just mix all the ingredients so that we have a wonderful base for the salad to go into it. All right, here we are. Let's move on now with the other ingredients. This is an unusual cheese, but for those of you that live in the western part of the United States, it should not be difficult to find. For those of you that have access to Latino groceries, this should not be difficult to find. It's a Mexican cheese, cojita, and I love it. If you don't find this particular cheese, any other cheese that's hard would work great. Another one would be great is queso blanco, which is fairly easy to find, especially for us here in Southern California. Now, to the base, we add a little bit of red peppers, we dice very fine, and a little bit of onions. Nicely chopped. Mix all these ingredients together, and this will welcome for us the salad. The salad is going to be made with corn. You can cook it, you can grill it if you want to. This is a wonderful enhancement, especially now in summertime that the corn is getting at its very best. This point, you want to be attentive and watch this technique. I grab the bowl, I turn it toward me, and then I mix again. Grab, turn, mix. Grab, turn, mix. Why? You want to make sure that all the elements that were part of the dressing that right now are stuck at the bottom of the bowl reincorporate themselves inside the salad. One last thing that I do, and this is just for color, I add some extra chopped parsley that I'm gonna add just to add some green. By the way, if you like to, instead of parsley, you can use cilantro. I like parsley better. That's it. The salad is basically ready. When you make this at home, I would propose that you let this rest for at least a half an hour, 1 hour. All the flavors will come together. Now, let me show you how to plate it. One of the greatest fortunes that I had when I first came to Los Angeles and I started working in the restaurants was to be surrounded by people who really wanted to teach me. Immigrants like me. They were from Latin America, Mexico, Guatemala, Brazil, Argentina, San Salvador. I would like to say I invented this, but this is the byproduct of the experience that I had being exposed to other cultures that showed me a better way of doing things. And this is how you make spicy corn salad. Once you understand the soul of the dish, then you can start creating from the dish something of your own. Chorizo as a sausage that I use for breakfast, making tamales from scratch. That was for me one of the greatest accomplishments ever. But the mole sauce. Mamma mia, the mole sauce with chocolate in it. That in it, can you imagine that? Chocolate for a sauce you can pour over meat if you want to. Sometimes the easiest things are the most difficult to make, but not if you're watching my show. Today, I'm gonna make you happy. I'm going to show you to make poached chicken breast, perfect technique, by the way, and mole sauce with chocolate. Let me show you how to make it. Chicken with mole sauce was for me one of the most incredible dishes I've ever learned. Once I found out that there is chocolate inside mole, I became super curious. I had to figure out a way on how to do it. I called all my friends. Many of them had recipes that their mom, their grandmas made. And in the process, I developed something on my own. But I wanted to create something that not only has the principal flavors of the mole sauce, that's a signature in itself, but also I wanted to deploy simple, easy to make techniques. And one of the most remarkable techniques is the proper simmering and braising of a chicken breast. What we've done inside the pot, we already placed some fresh chicken stock. I'm gonna bring this to a boil. And then we'll insert the chicken breast in there and I will let it simmer. This seems simple, there's nothing to it. But there is an enormous amount of grace and beauty on how to do this. For example, if you do not have chicken stock, you could do this with plain water. If you have the time, many times I tell my friends that want to listen to my strange techniques to actually take 32 ounces of chicken stock and over medium heat, reduce it down by half. What does it do? It compacts the flavor of the chicken stock. It's as if you're making almost a glace de veau, so to speak. And what happens in this process, that the chicken stock is even then much more flavorful. But let's assume that you start, like I am doing right now, with basic chicken stock. How do you bring this to a series of flavors that will eventually give this pack of additional impact to the natural taste of the chicken breast without taking over and without ruining the breast? So as the stock is coming to a boil, the first thing that I do is always a little bit of the addition of the Nixtellino special rub. This is something that came from my days learning how to barbecue. It's a mixture of salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, brown sugar. In this particular case, I also put some chili in it so that we maintain the essence of this. And by the way, this is a basic build in which, as long as you keep all the parts equal to each other, so 1 tablespoon, 1 tablespoon, 1 tablespoon, you can expand it in any direction you want. The addition of the chili powder gives it a little bit of a kick, but that's not all that gives flavor. These are trimming pieces that I've used for making other sauces, and what you see in there is celery, onion, carrot, and a bay leaf. This is very important and truly is taking us back to the days of the old way of making sauces. All of these elements together with the chicken stock are going to create for us a flavor base that will envelope the chicken breast with an additional layer of flavor, but at the same time, it will also enhance it. But what is braising chicken? How do you simmer the chicken into the stock without overcooking it or without drying it out? The biggest mistake that people make is once they bring this to a boil, to basically put the chicken in it and let it cook for 5, 6, 7 minutes. What happens in the boil, the chicken is salted by super hot water. It stiffens up. You harden the texture of the chicken breast. It works against you. Instead, what I like to do is to bring this to a nice rolling boil. And once it reaches the rolling boil, we add a little bit more of my rub, just to give it a layer. Some more rub goes into the stock, and now watch this. Very simply, place it in. I let it be. I turn it from one side to the next. Already you see it's starting to change the color. This is super hot in there. We place the cover and we move it aside. We are going to let that sit by itself for about 15 to 18 minutes. When we take it out, we'll make sure that the interior temperature is at least 160. While this is taking place, let me show you how to make the mole sauce. We clean up our station. You always have to do that. Wash my hands. Always do that when you work with raw chicken. And I'm gonna make the mole sauce. We got the oil in the pan, and it's getting nice and hot. And let's get started with the sofrito. I'm gonna treat this as a classical sauce. So the first thing we're gonna do is carrots. Oh, my English, taking a vacation. Onions and celery. This you see me do tons of times. To this we're gonna add some chopped garlic. Chopped garlic is important because I want the sauce to cook fairly quickly. And also I want for all the ingredients to amalgamate. At this point, we're gonna get it moving into the oil until it starts to sizzle a little bit. I have another surprise addition, chopped bacon. I love it. You don't need to do this. As a matter of fact, I don't even think it's even typical to do in Latino cooking, but I find that it adds an enormous amount of flavor to the sauce. And here we go with the dominant flavors. A little bit of chopped jalapeno pepper. The reason why I chop everything so fine is because I'm gonna treat the sauce as a homemade sauce. I will not strain it, degrease it. I'll do it exactly as a mom would make it for their children at home. And one of the things that I heard all the time when I ask my friends to give me some hints on how to make it perfect, they always mention the fact that they love to bite into the small tidbits that are included into the sauce. Now here there are two great personalities. we have cinnamon and cumin. These two elements together is the first time ever that I have used it. So this was taught to me. It is not a Sicilian tradition, it's not an Italian tradition, but these particular spices in this sequence really are at the key of this base. A little bit of dry oregano, and next to the oregano, be careful with this. This is chili powder, so a pinch will make you happy. This will not make you cry, but will make you remember me. And if you cook for others, remember this. Be fully aware of what the toleration of heat is. To make something that only tastes good to you, what's the fun of eating alone? You get me? So, well, I learned this. My wife does not have a high tolerance to overly spicy things. I wish you could actually right now smell this, because this is, wow, beautiful. Next addition is unexpected, and it's tequila. Why? Well, I figure we're gonna make a Mexican sauce, a Spanish sauce, a Latino sauce. You gotta put tequila in there. That's the only thing. I mean, it would not have been right if I put marsala. That doesn't work. I mean, maybe it does work, but in this case, I wanted to do it right. Now here we go with the other additions. Some tomato sauce. The next addition is chicken stock. Once it gets to this point, you want to bring it to a boil. Once the sauce reaches a boil, you want to let it simmer for a good 30-35 minutes, especially when you have this quantity. If you're moving it really quickly, you want to serve this right away, then you need to think of this almost as a pan sauce. You would use less tomato sauce, less chicken stock, you make it reduce quicker. But this way, the flavors will come out even better. And the slow resolve, the slow maturity that comes from the sauce going a little bit at a time, that's exactly what we're looking for. And there's one more addition, but I'm not gonna do it until it gets to the right consistency. Well, the sauce is reduced to the consistency that I want. Always at this point, taste it and adjust it according to salt, pepper, and sugar, depending on what it is that you like. But the addition is coming up now, and you're gonna love it. Cocoa powder, chocolate. The European made a whole industry out of sweets, but long before these recipes were introduced to Europe, the people here in America, throughout Mexico, Guatemala, San Salvador, already were using chocolate in their food. And this is what makes mole. This is bitter chocolate powder. Do not use sweet. You can if you want to, but I think it would be a bit more of an exaggeration. This is something that I'm accustomed also to use in several Sicilian dishes. And what you want to do at this point, you want to stir. You have a very gentle heat. I think we could take a little bit more powder. There we are. And the bitterness of the cocoa powder is not going to work against you. It's going to mellow down all the other ingredients, and it's going to give a finish to the sauce that's completely unique. To most untrained eye, this looks already as a chocolate sauce, but it does not have the sweetness of the chocolate sauce. Rather, it has a balance. It opened up, and it is magical. You can do this with grilled fish. You can do it with poached chicken. You can do this with a steak. There are no limitation on what you can use this particular sauce. But once you learn how to make this, it's going to be one of the greatest days of your life. Well, the sauce is ready. The chicken is ready. Well, now we're ready to plate. The chicken is cooked at 160 in the middle. Now the chicken is ready to be taken out. And what I like to do before we serve it, I like to slice it. I mean, feel how nice and tender this still is. It's just absolutely beautiful. And look at the other side. This is where we put the flavor in. Then remember, everything basically got on top of it. It's just splendid. So let me get this one started. Look at the inside. The juice is still. Look how beautiful this is. Let me get the slices nice and going so you can have them exactly the way that we want. So, onions. Look how juicy, how tender. This is absolutely beautiful. We have the perfect slices. They're super, super tender. You can see the juices in here. I mean, this to me was an astonishing discovery. This to me makes a wonderful portion. This, you could make a whole different portion. So let's put this aside for right now, and then I'm gonna show you exactly how to plate it. This dish will forever be one of my favorite ones because I remember how excited I was when I talked to my friends who were from Mexico, and they told me that their mom and their grandma used to make a dish with chicken that featured chocolate. This a beautiful combination of flavors, of the element. As you cut through it, you will taste the sauce underneath. Always have extra sauce on the side because this is full of love, full of flavor. This is not Italian, but I am so glad that I have great friends who taught me how to make it because this is now one of my favorite things ever. And for a Sicilian boy to be able to cook like this, well, that is a gift from God. And this is how you make poached chicken with mole sauce. But if you're lucky enough to have a friend who's Mexican and invites you to their house and you get to taste their mom's food, there is, in my opinion, a huge impact of flavor, elegance, and simplicity, something that truly reminds me a great deal of the fabulousness of Italian food, Sicilian food, where simple ingredients are put together and they create a flavor of their own. It is not a Sicilian dish, so let's not argue about it, but it's a dish that inspired me. A chilled soup called gazpacho. Let me show you how to make it. So, if you were born in Sicily like me, what is the one thing that you always want? Tomatoes. You want them in winter, you want them in spring, you want them in summer, you want them in fall. And you always invent new ways on how to make something special happen. This particular soup is not Sicilian. I will lie to you if I tell you that we used to make this in Sicily. It's very popular in Spain, and I truly did not discover it until I came here to the United States. It's called gazpacho. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But what I found in it is a wonderful articulation of thoughts and ideas on how certain elements can be brought together and really create a spectacular presence. What we have done, we've taken a can of Italian San Marzano tomatoes and we have placed it into the blender and we really emulsified it down to a wonderful liquid form. And here it is. I'm going to add this. This is the base of our sauce. But by itself, it's nothing more than just tomato juice. How do we turn this into something spectacular? First thing we're gonna do is a little bit of red wine vinegar. Why red? Because the first time that I made this soup, I had the vinegar on hand and it was red. And ever since, I always play with it. Does it have to be red? No, you can use red as well as white balsamic. You can also use a balsamic vinegar itself. It'll just deepen and darken the color of this. But what the vinegar does, it puts the yin to the yang. In other words, we have the sweetness of the tomatoes that needs to have something that articulates it to the other side. Speaking of that, here's the Nixtellino special rub. Onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, brown sugar, and paprika. Why is this combination of flavors so interesting to us? All of these flavors will eventually mold into the structure of all the other ingredients that we're going to add. Some of them will extract some water, which will reincorporate itself into the soup, giving us a wonderful personality. But the other part that I like is the divisive and yet combining essence of this dichotomy of opposites. The salt and the pepper against the brown sugar suddenly find themselves in the company of their best friends. So here we put now a little bit of yellow bell peppers. Why yellow bell peppers? I like them. This is Persian cucumber. The reason why I like Persian cucumber is first because it has a spectacular color. Second is not as watery as regular cucumbers and also has a flavor to it that I think is superior. Whatever it is that they do in Persia to these cucumbers, they really know what they're doing. Then we go again with some green bell pepper. And this is my favorite of all times. This is green onions. Why are they so spectacular? Why are they so important? Green onions has a different texture from white onion, and yet in making all of this happen, it really brings out an excellent element because not only I use the green onions, but I also use a little touch of the white onions. Chopped, very finely chopped. This is exactly what we want to do. At this point, we're pretty much done with most of the flavoring, but one of the things that I like to do is add some water. Why am I adding water? Look at the texture, what this is. I want this to be not so thick that it's so dense. Also, if you don't want to add water, you still wanted to put some extra flavor, think of spicy tomato sauce, the one that they used to make drinks with. That would be a wonderful way to add liquidity and also infuse it with additional flavors. Now, the most important part, chopped garlic. Why chopped and not sliced? Well, you want this to disappear in it. You want this to give really the flavor of garlic to the whole process, and at the same time, you do not want to be overtaken by it. Garlic is a great friend, but sometimes it overtakes us completely. That's it. For this soup to be ready, we need to let it sit for a few hours. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna bring it into the refrigerator, let it chill for a few hours, and then I'll show you to plate. This gazpacho, as far as I'm concerned, has the wonderful elements of a foreign dish that became my friend. But also it represents in a most significant way what is that us as human beings can do when we open up our mind and we realize that the most beautiful things about us are not just what is that we think about, what is we create on our own, but what is that we learn from others. One last thing that you don't need to do, but I love to do it, is chives. Why chives? L'erba cipollina, as we call it in Italian, adds one more splendid element of flavor to all of this. And this is how you make gazpacho, Stellino style. But the thing that I love the most is this opportunity that I've had to come to a country where everything is new to me. And where everything is so exciting, so beautiful, and this willfulness to discover and to learn. But the flavor, and how this flavor is so distinct, so powerful, so clear, that was for me one of the greatest discoveries ever. What can I tell you? Sometime when you least expect it, you fall in love. And that's what happened to me in Mexican food.
Oh, okay, give me a little Spanish welcome if you know anything like hola. And then be like,
Hola, bienvenido. Ahora nosotros cocinamos un plato muy gustoso. Hoy sí, yo soy muy guapo. Bienvenido. Venite conmigo, entra a mi cocina. Ahora nosotros preparamos... Hola, it's a special show. All about Italian food. No, questo è Italian food. Tamasa, non Italian. What the hell am I talking? Hola, bienvenido in cucina. Today we are going to make... Welcome to my kitchen, and today we are going to make the perfect ham with my magical marsala glaze, a seductive, scrumptious sauce, a marsala applesauce. I'm going to show you to make sweet potato fondant. And we finish it with Brussels sprouts with bacon. Mamma mia, somebody hold me back, they're beautiful. Today I'm going to share with you my story, how hard it was to find a ham in February. Come for the recipes, stay for the stories. The making of a TV show is a fairly difficult endeavor. Not because it's difficult to make it, but because everything that you think is going to go your way, actually, never goes your way. Carissimi amici, benvenuti in cucina. My dearest friends, welcome to my kitchen. Today, I'm going to show you how to make the perfect baked ham. A fantastic idea for your home parties, for your holiday parties, and get the family involved. Let me show you how to make it. We'll preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And now, let me show you how to score the ham. I would like to tell you that this ham is an Italian recipe, but it's not. I learned this here in America. I remember one of the first holiday parties I was invited to that they had this huge piece of ham just like this, and I said to myself, I need to learn how to do that. The one thing that we need to do beforehand is to score the ham. Why? Let me show you. This skin, as you can see, is very, very tough. So what I like to do using a very sharp knife like this, I like to score it all the way down like this, going down the skin. And the purpose of this is that when we'll create the glaze later on, one of the important part is that the glaze will leak into the flesh of the ham through these openings that we're doing. And then I'm gonna go across almost as if making a diamond pattern. There are two schools of thoughts here. One is that you should be taking the skin of the ham off. I do not prefer that option. I've done it before. I like to keep it on top. It gives me the option to serve it to my guests because this skin becomes super crispy and super sweet. Some people even take it for dessert. So here I'm going to get a little bit more, and I go across like this. Now, always be aware of where your blade is at. If you get too enthusiastic and go like this, you might cut yourself. And I speak out of experience, I've done it myself. So very attentive on where you want to be. A few more cuts here at the top, in the back of it. Let's take this, let's move it aside. The baking dish that I'm going to use is rondeau. It's not an Italian word, it's a French word. It basically means the round pan, but it sounds so cool when you say French. Two schools of thoughts here. One is to put the ham directly into it and place it in the oven. I don't agree with this school of thought. Why? The ham is going to let go of the juices, and even though we are cooking at a fairly gentle heat in the 350 range, when it goes to the bottom, it could cause flare-ups. So there's a trick that I've learned from many Sicilian dishes of the past. This is rock salt, the kind of salt that you use for making ice cream. What we want to do is to put enough in the pan to cover the bottom of it. But why do we do that? It maintains its rock-like consistency all the way through the cook. Also, what it does, it dissipates the juices that come from the ham, which they don't liquefy the salt, rather they harden up underneath, and it prevents any kind of flare-up. And for any kind of heat, anywhere between 350 and 450, especially with large roasts, this has been one of my favorite tricks always. So now we're ready to take the ham. We place it right inside our pot, as it is, like this. The oven is preheated, it's waiting for the ham to get in, and let's get started with it. And let me show you how easy it is to make a baked ham. I have a specific story about a ham. You see, I wanted to do a show about a ham. I thought it was a great idea because the ham is not part of my Italian background, and I discovered ham as a festive meal here in the United States. And I always wanted to learn how to do it. This one time I put my head to it. And it was right around the holidays. They had a little bit of a after Thanksgiving, so there were hams everywhere. I mean, they were just kind of giving them away. I remember I finally came up with the idea of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to actually do a show about how to cook a ham and all the accoutrements that go with it. I remember going to the store. There's only one ham left. There is a secret to make the perfect ham, and the secret really is in the glaze. Today I'm going to show you how to make my version of the glaze, which contains a Sicilian wine, Marsala. This particular glaze will create a wonderful little crust outside of the ham and still penetrate with some fabulous flavor on the inside. You're going to love this. Let me show you how to make it. The ham is cooking in the oven. It'll be there for quite a while longer. This is the perfect time for us to make the glaze. When I make the glaze, I follow a rule because of a huge mistake that I made in the past. Notice how big this pan is, and also notice the shape that this pan has. It's almost shaped as a bowl. What this does for us, it prevents for the glaze as it cooks and it starts producing big, huge bubble to spill over. I propose that whatever pan you use, you avoid something with straight walls like this, because what it will cause for you, especially on a smaller one like this, is for the glaze to spill over once it starts boiling. But let's get started. Let me show you how to do this, because this is very simple. I'm going to crank up the heat up a little bit. I'm going to start with the sugar. Together with sugar, we're going to put our butter. The next thing we're going to do, and this is not an American way of doing it, this is Marsala. Marsala is Sicilian wine. Why do I do that? I do that because it brings joy to me, and it's a variation that actually has a little bit of my own signature in it. Here is mustard. Why are we adding mustard? Well, there's so much sugar, we need to have something that is the yin and yang thing, and the mustard works wonderfully well in doing this. One of the things that I love about this technique is that all the ingredients go in at once, and here's going to be a mysterious ingredient for you as you've never seen it before. This is 2 cloves of garlic, which I have crushed. And I crushed them because I want the flavor of the garlic to go on the inside of it as well. So here we go with that. What we have in here is honey. Honey is going to increase the sweetness of it, but it will bring in a different kind of sweetness, one that we will taste on our tongue in a fantastic way. And then there is vinegar. You can use any kind of vinegar you want. However, in my opinion, the best kind of vinegar to use is the apple cider vinegar. And here we go with this. And here we have some onions, white onions, super finely chopped. And what I'm trying to do is to create a combination that brings all these flavors out in a unique form, rendering for us what I refer to often as the line in the middle. I call it the yellow line in the middle. I'm convinced that in everything that we cook and everything that we do in life, there's always one format that's the most revealing of them all. And this specifically is what I'm looking for. At this point, I'm going to crank up the heat a little bit, and you want to stir this until this starts to boil and it starts to reduce. What we're trying to do, we're trying to evaporate as much as of the water that's in here from the liquid that we put with the vinegar and with the marsala. And then when we get down to the base of the sugar and the other ingredients, you want to see this glistening and hardening up a little bit. In a certain way, you want to make almost a syrup-like consistency. And you can see right now the way in which it's behaving, the sugar is going wild on the inside. As the water is evaporating because of the medium-high heat we have it on, and it reduces, you see the wonderful syrupy consistency coming through. But you must always, and throughout the whole process, stir about like this. If you do not stir about and the sugar is left at the bottom untouched, it will actually burn. You want to look at a time between 8 to 10 minutes of continuously doing this and stirring. We're now at the point in which the glaze is ready. I turn it off. As the glaze is cooling off, I set myself up with this other pan right over here, and now I'll transfer it over. Ready? Let me show you. You can see from the darkness of it all, that has reduced to the perfect consistency. This is awesome. And there are the onions, the garlic, all these things that come together. The sugar, of course, you've seen that. The vinegar that fights against the sugar and gives this sweet and tart finish to it. The mustard, who also has its own imprint in this whole thing. These are all flavors that are moving around and playing. This could be a sauce in the form and the way in which it is, but I will use this for coating the outside. And what I love as the end result that this particular finishing touch does is that it creates almost like a hardened crust on the outside of the ham, full of flavor of its own, where even a minimal amount of it will just jump inside your mouth as if it's a wonderful symphony, as if it's poetry. I know, I look like a kid, forgive me. This thing is ready, the glaze is absolutely perfect. The next thing I want to do is to look at the ham and see if the ham is ready now to take the glaze. Let's take a look. I have to tell you, the aroma is splendid. So the ham has now been in the oven for just about a couple of hours. We have about roughly an hour left. This is the point where we want to put the glaze on. Now, putting on the glaze is something that we want to do every 20 minutes. And it's quite simple. I like to use a silicone brush because it allows me to really place it in such a fashion that gives me control. Also notice how loose is my glaze. One of the biggest mistakes that you could make is to make it so thick that it becomes hard. Remember, if you reduce the sugar too much, it hardens a lot. But look what a beautiful glistening that it takes. And this is really the painting part of it that I love the most. Making a ham, it's an artistic thing. And this is something that I just absolutely adore. All right, the glaze has been applied properly. And now we're gonna be doing this every 20 minutes until the ham has cooked completely. So let's take this back to the oven. I asked the guy, I said, excuse me, what are the other hams? There was tons of hams like that. Oh, we gave them all back. What do you mean you give them all back? I need a ham. Well, there's one in there. I need more. It's 12 pounds, he says to me. He says to me that. I'm looking at him and says, I need more than one ham. I says, I'm sorry, we have none. We'll be back next November. Mind you, this is now February.
What do? It's a good thing that my wife, Nancy, she is indomitable. She has this astonishing energy, and she must have been hundreds and hundreds of calls until finally, somewhere out in Glendale, we find a store who still had a couple of hams.
Well, if you know me, you know that I find a sauce for everything. And I have a fantastic sauce that I want to go along with this ham. It's made with marsala and apple juice. Even though many times I call the apple juice applesauce, it's incredible. Let me show you how to make it. I'm gonna start with some butter. Unsalted butter is what I prefer. And the reason why I prefer unsalted butter is because I want for the ingredients to talk by themselves. The butter is at the perfect consistency, starting to bubbling up. And this is when we want to start our ingredients. First thing we do, our mirepoix. What is a mirepoix? Mirepoix, it's a French word for the Italian word soffritto. This is an iconic beginning for any soup, any sauce, in which there's a certain amount of sophistication. Truly, all that it boils down to it is carrots, celery, and onion. You just want to cook this for a couple of moments, and here we go with the other ingredients. We're going to add now some bacon. Why bacon? I find the bacon brings to just about any sauce that I make, sometimes even fish sauces, an element that's totally unexpected. The smokiness of it, the beauty of it, and it gets along with just about everything. I lowered it now to medium. So you've seen the garlic. I'm starting right now to really identify the aroma of it. A little bit of time to give that wonderful addition that this herbs brings onto this. This is tomato sauce. Why? Why is it we putting tomato sauce in something that's going to go on top of ham? The guiding motion here is given by the base, which is right here before us. This is going to give an expansion to the flavor. It's going to give also a coloring to everything that will have this beautiful darkness to it. What I want to do at this point, as I'm stirring, and it will be just for a couple of minutes, I want for this tomato sauce to coat the outside of every piece of vegetable that's in there, almost creating a small little crust. This will enhance the flavor of everything, but don't do it on high heat. Remember, when using copper, medium is good enough. Then the next thing that we do is it's apple juice, common apple juice. Here we go with this. The next thing we're going to do, and this is not an American way of doing it, this is marsala. And this is the most important part. The best stock to use, if you have access to it, is veal stock. If you don't, beef stock. Now we're gonna bring this to medium-high, and you're gonna stir this until it reaches a rolling boil. Most of the copper pans in my collection are at least 20 to 40 years old, and I have a couple of them that are almost 110 and 115, and I love them. I can honestly feel the energy of all those chefs that came before me. We're getting now to the rolling boil. So at this point, once we reach this rolling boil, and you can see the bubbles moving all the way around, I stop stirring, and I reduce the heat down to low. And you're gonna let this simmer without a cover, for a good 40 to 45 minutes. This is the ideal pan for the making of the sauce. And as you can see, most of the heat, as it slams against the walls, goes outward this way, but also at the same time, prevents the sauce from burning, and it gives it this gentle reduction over time. Let's let this sit now for the next 45 to 50 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll strain it. This is the part I love the most when it comes to making a sauce. The sauce has now acquired all the flavors that we wanted to give to, and is commingled into a wonderful finish. But it's not done. We need to do two things to the sauce. We need to strain it first, and then we need to reduce it further, and we'll thicken it up as well. One thing at a time. Let's start with the straining. What I'm doing right here, really, what I'm trying to do is to liberate as much as possible of the sauce. As you can see, all the elements that are giving flavor to the sauce are here. So let me bring it back to the pan. Well, we reduced the sauce by half. As you can see, there's lesser volume, and the sauce has darkened in the process of doing so. Now, one last thing that I want to do is to thicken it up. The flavor is there, but we need to do a couple of things to get it exactly where we want to. What I have here, it's a slurry. A slurry is equal parts of water in this particular case and cornstarch. What this does is that once it hits the hot liquid underneath, it starts to expand and it thickens everything underneath without really impairing the flavor. The constant stirring is to make sure the lumps don't form. I'm gonna lower it down now. There it is. We got the sauce that we want. There's one last thing that we need to do, and that is to taste the sauce, and we need to adjust for salt and pepper, which are the only things that I've not added. I quickly put my finger in here. This sauce is ready. We're going to move it here on the other side of the stove. We're gonna let it simmer for a bit longer just to keep it warm. The next thing I wanna do is to look at the ham and see if the ham is ready now. The ham has finished cooking. It's now resting. It's outside of the oven. We're cranking up the heat on the oven to 450 degrees because we need a much bigger heat in order to make this wonderful fondant with the sweet potatoes.
So I went to the butcher and I asked for this particular cut that is called rosetta. Rosetta is a piece of meat that only exists in the hind legs of the animal, and it's right at the joint when the leg comes into the hip. And it's a small, ugly piece of meat, but because of the enormous amount of blood circulation that comes through it, it's the tenderest part. And it takes ability to cut it out, and also takes ability to open it up, get all the filaments out, and just have it ready for the grill. I remember I was at the butcher in Palermo, and I asked him, "Do you have rosettas?" And he looks at me and says, "Who's asking?"
The next thing I'm going to show you how to make is potato fondant, a very old classic recipe, but we're going to do it with sweet potatoes. Not only I'll show you how to cook it, but I'll also show you how to cut them and shape them in a very pretty shape. Let me show you how to make it. We need to shape the sweet potatoes. I'm going to use two different knives. One is a Japanese type of knife. The style of this knife is known as kiritsuke, and it's quite remarkable. Now, notice we have three pieces like this and the two edges. The two edges will do without, they do nothing for us. Now we need to shape this into the perfect shape. And if you can see, I'm doing it from the top, and I'm basically cutting every piece out, so we end up with a little rectangular piece like that. Why is this important for us? You see how this piece is completely different? It has a shape that's highly irregular. This kind of mandates a certain force regularity to it that ultimately will decorate. There's an